So we are here to talk about leveraging data and analytics. Research has been a part of marketing for a very long time, but the wealth of data available to us has increased substantively in the past few years, and clients and agencies often struggle with what tools and systems are most important to determine marketing effectiveness, and how do you use those tools either in isolation or in conjunction with each other. I oversee media and analytics at Butler, Stern & Partners, and we often work with our clients to help them solve these challenges or to help solve our own internal challenges. Adam is here representing MaassMedia. He will speak to web analytics. He has a combination of programming and analyst background that help him bring insights to clients based on data. David is with Sysomos, a social listening and social analytics company. Formerly, he was with Publicis, and he is a very prolific writer. Maggie is with Analytics Partners, Executive Vice President. She provides consultative services across a breadth of categories. And Hank is with Domo, I'm sorry, it's not a business intelligence tool, but something like that. And he is going to speak to how his tool can bring all of those solutions together. So starting with Adam, go ahead.
So what is web analytics? I put a few thoughts on the top corner of the slide. Some people might think it's just weirdos like Dr. Evil saying nonsense jargon. Other people might be thinking, oh, it's just Omniture or Google Analytics. You just throw it in your website and you're done. But really, it's a lot more than that. Web analytics is about understanding what's going on your website. And Omniture and Google Analytics, those are the tools to help you track the on-site behavior, but they're only a piece of the puzzle. By bringing in other data sources, you're really better able to paint the whole picture of what's going on the website. That being said, Omniture and Google Analytics, they are really important, so I just broke down some points about what the differences are. So the first main difference is in implementation and how easy it is to get the code onto the website so that you're able to understand, so that it's able to do the tracking, essentially. The next piece is building reports within the tool. I personally am not a huge fan of in-tool reporting, but they do give you the option. So if you quickly need to get executives' data, you're able to do that through the tools. But what I really like to do is take the data out of the tools and put it somewhere else. For instance, Domo actually is great. You can connect your Google Analytics or your Omniture into a tool like that and do some more advanced modeling and really extract some insights that way. And then finally, getting different data sources into these tools really helps. And there's different processes depending on the tool. So a robust web analytics implementation can let you know who's doing what on your website. I put those green arrows on the slide because it's kind of circular. You can either start with actions like orders, video views, engagements, and you can be like, who's completing those actions, and then find out. Or you can start with a cohort of people. Let's say you ran a social campaign and you want to see how they did. You can be like, show me all the people that we brought in from this social campaign and what actions did they complete. So it's kind of the who did what or what did this group do. So when we talk about the who, there's a bunch of different things that you can gather about people. The first three on this slide under who are things that come out of the box. That's why they're not in a box. So new versus repeat visitors, mobile or web, and the location of the person. If you get a little bit more fancy and you start tagging your campaigns with UTM parameters so that you can understand when your visitors came in through marketing, you can tell those people as well. If you're able to connect with an organization like Axiom, you're able to gather demographic information. And then you could be like, how are 35 to 50-year-olds using our website differently than millennials? And finally, if you're able to have a survey and you connect that to your web analytics, you can see, based on people's answers, how they're using your website differently. What out of the box? Really simple. You can get page views and visitors. So how many people came to my website and what did they look at? But if you decide to delve a little bit deeper with your development, you can understand what people are using your internal search for. That can help you identify things that are missing from your navigation, or just help you understand customer intent a little bit better so that you're able to get people to where they need to be faster. Another thing really important, obviously, is your orders. You want to know that people are ordering and what they're ordering. I've seen companies that bring in data from their product database. So the order will just say this number was ordered, but then you can get all of the metadata about the product, like it was a red shoe, and then you could say how many red things were purchased or how many shoes were purchased. But those types of things that are in the boxes, they require additional development. They're possible, but they require planning and development. Go for it. Improv.
All right, so I'm going to talk about attribution. So I guess first the question is, what is attribution? And as I was talking to several of my colleagues before this event, we decided that there could probably be a whole conference or panel just about that very topic. But for today's discussion, really when we're thinking about attribution, the concept of attribution is really the ability to allocate credit to the various touch points that a user goes through on the path to a specific outcome, whether that be a sale, an inquiry, an application, and so on. But the idea is really that attribution actually is broken. And the reason I say that is that it's really only able to understand that allocation to those addressable media channels. So things like email, direct mail, paid search, and so on. It's not able to really understand the impact of mass media. So Denise this morning spoke about experiential advertising, for example, and that's really hard to tie back to an individual user per se. The other challenge with attribution is that it's not able to really understand other things that are happening in the outside world. So competitive activity, for example, seasonality, etc. So marketing mix modeling has been around for a long time now, since the early 80s. And the nice thing about marketing mix modeling is that it's able to provide really that holistic understanding. So what attribution can offer in terms of that holistic measurement, marketing mix modeling can, specifically in terms of really being able to tie TV advertising, for example, to sales. However, what the limiting factor with marketing mix modeling is that it's missing that granularity, that understanding of the customer, that user journey, if you will. So really, marketing mix isn't the answer to really understanding true attribution either. And so when you look at these sort of kind of combined, you have attribution, which is providing that customer lens, and we have marketing mix, which is sort of providing that strategic business lens. And historically, they've essentially been done really as disparate solutions in the marketplace. A challenge with that is you might get very different answers in terms of the outcomes of those different solutions. One that we hear all the time is, my marketing mix is telling me that my generic search is working really hard for me, whereas my attribution is telling me keep investing more behind branded search terms. So there's sort of that conflicting version of the truth, if you will. So, you know, the idea, the holy grail really would be, can we bring all of these solutions together to provide a comprehensive understanding of what's working? And really that's, you know, what the marketplace is really moving towards is this idea of unified measurement. So Forrester, for example, in Q4 of last year, did a report on what they called marketing measurement and optimization, and really talked a lot about this idea of unified measurement. And they call it UMIA, for Unified Marketing Impact Analytics. Not the most exciting term there. But the idea is really to bring these previously disparate solutions of multi-touch attribution, which gives you that great understanding at the customer level of those different touch points that are driving conversions, with that holistic understanding that you get from marketing mix modeling to essentially provide you with one version of the truth.
Let's see.
Just going to bounce back and forth.
I win this one. All right. Little bit of slide roulette. By the way, I just have to acknowledge someone. You know who has the hardest job of anyone here? It's the panel photographer. It's like, I mean, I keep hearing the clicks going, and I'm like, I mean, we're all just, so just picking which one, like, I want them staring a little this way. I really applaud your work there. That you're taking so many photos, and we're all just looking the same. I feel like we should be giving you more action shots. But on that note, then I might as well go back to my old deck on on visual search. So we will do a little bit of a slide improv, because I was going to take a little bit of a broader view on social analytics. Instead, I have a feeling I'm just going to be talking a little bit about visual search. And so I'm going to dive into one specific aspect right now, just to roll with this. But there is an interesting challenge, because social analytics, we're taking a look at paid, owned, and earned media, and it's how this all comes together. For me, one of the more exciting aspects of it is this idea of getting into the visual aspect of it, because we're spending a lot of time talking about text. You know, are there mentions of your brand, of your competitors, things of that nature? But what if you can start understanding the images, as you saw from Gemma's amazing talk earlier this morning? Just, it's an incredibly visual web, and I think we're just starting to scratch the surface there. And so, I'll skip a little bit of the intro, because I just want to get to the meat of it, and I'll also save a little bit of time for the Q&A. But it's like if you tried to just capture the text, the hashtags, things like that, then you'd only really scratch the surface. And so this is what I like to call the visual data gap, where right now it's like we're looking at something, say, Earth-sized, and the sun is this huge amount of visual information, and we're just starting to capture how much more there is. When is there a brand featured in the background? Where are there products or images of a category? Maybe there isn't even a specific brand out there that you see people are publicly sharing. How do we start tapping into that, having us feed into that, then incorporating this into not just our owned media, analyzing earned media, and then determining what to promote through paid media. So all of this is going into where social analytics is heading. Slice actually a little bit ago did a fantastic report. So they're a visual search company enabling some campaigns with this, and I've got no particular tie, and I just admire a lot of their work. And so I've done a little research showing that the quality of images is so important, and yet text-based searches are really inefficient for finding the right products online. This isn't just a gratuitous photo here, I promise. What a lot of this is getting to the J-Lo green dress problem. Does anyone remember when this came out? Does this ring a bell? I really wouldn't. My wife would. But this actually inspired Google in 2001 to start tackling visual search, because at the 2000 Grammys that aired that year, Eric Schmidt, then the CEO of Google, he saw this and realized all these people were looking for the image, but there was this disconnect between text and imagery, and I think now we're finally getting to that point where that's being solved. They have an amazing demo, and again, I'm not going to play all this, but Draw with Google, where you can actually, it's sort of like a Pictionary game where you train Google to go and determine what you're drawing here. And so they use this to feed their own algorithms, but I mean, it's really fascinating. I'd imagine Googling it will work, but happy to share the link as well. And if they're not optimized for this, then I think they should just call it a day. And just skip ahead a little bit because, and then one other example I wanted to quickly show is Pinterest. So Gemma talked about YouTube being the second largest search engine before. Pinterest is also way up there, 2 billion searches a month. And they have these new amazing visual discovery tools where you can go and say you like an image of that table, it'll look for things in their database that match it right through their mobile app. So really fascinating with what they're doing there. One of my favorite examples I found was when I was doing a search in London, and I looked up Big Ben, and so you could zoom in on the clock face, and then you could see things like the Blue Mosque in Istanbul, that there was like a design element that, so just even for creative inspiration for the creatives in the room, I love what Pinterest is doing here. And there's some startups like The Take where you can actually start, again, it's like a literal application of that J-Lo dress problem, fitting for Hollywood here too, so you could start finding things that are in movies. I'm going to skip over this because it's a little wonky, and this is just an example of some of the analytics you can get out of it. The one thing I did want to show just for a split second is the different kinds of use cases for it, because it can help inform creative campaigns, even come up with imagery to use. It can be used for partnership ideation. Which two brands are most commonly in the same visual together? Rights management, the Saul Goodmans in the room would definitely appreciate this. And finding top influencers, again, not just by what they're saying, but by the kinds of images being shared. So I will close there and hand this over to Hank.
I'm going to talk a little bit about reporting. The first thing I want to point out is that in my organization, it's not just the marketing department that's interested in our digital campaign data. There are several groups across the company that are interested in the same data, and they have a very specific and unique purpose for that. For example, our director of digital analytics might be interested in campaign spend, remaining budget, number of leads generated. Our CMO may be interested in the ROI of certain digital campaigns and how that compares to the ROI of some of our field marketing campaigns or some of our corporate events. I know our VP of sales is always interested in the conversion rates of the different lead types we're serving, because that helps him to prioritize his sales efforts. And I think I can say the same for probably 90% of our customers, that they have more than just one group that's interested in that same campaign data. So what makes, and I apologize, I should have been on this slide. What makes reporting so hard? What we see a lot is that all of these different groups have their own analytics operations, and they are mining the data in work silos in their own respective groups to answer very specific questions that pertain to their groups. And what is problematic about these work silos is that you see data inconsistencies across groups, you see different interpretations of the data. Meetings very quickly become negotiating sessions. You all have seen this, to see whose data is right, whose data is best. And we lose focus on the business questions. We waste a lot of time, and I've seen this in a lot of different areas, on figuring out why the data sets don't align, why the reports don't all match up. And a lot of people realize the dangers of these work silos, and so they've moved to more of a system of centralized reporting. In a system of centralized reporting, you'll have one person or team that is responsible for gathering, cleansing, aggregating, and ultimately serving up the data to all of the stakeholders. They are also responsible for establishing definitions for the data terms, which is a huge thing, and also something that caused some misalignment. And so this is a great system because it establishes a single source of truth. We can put the focus back on the business questions and stop wasting so much of the time that we spend trying to figure out whose data is right. But the problem we have now is that because all of this goes through one team, you lose a little bit of the flexibility you had when all of the teams had total access to the data. You lose a little bit of the do-it-yourself model, and you're left with a system that can be easily bottlenecked. And here comes the line of requests. A lot of times it's out the door, especially during close of quarters. These teams can get very bogged down in requests. And so how do we get in front of this? I think the success of reporting at your organizations will depend largely on the reporting models that you use. And I don't believe there's a single best model that should be used, but I do believe that any reporting model should be based on 3 principles. And those are accuracy, timeliness, and access. So I'll talk a little bit about accuracy. In this context, this is more than just having correct data values. This is more than just 2 + 2 = 4. This means having all of your relevant data. If you're missing key pieces of data, you're not going to be able to tell the entire story. Your insights are going to be inaccurate or at least incomplete. So for example, if my VP of sales wants to know the conversion rates of different lead types, at the very minimum, I'll have to join my lead data to my CRM data so that I can track the progress of those leads through my sales funnel. Or if the CFO wants to look at the ROI of some of our campaigns, I'll need to tap my CRM, my financial data, possibly expense reports, to be able to tell the whole story. Second one is timeliness. Business leaders need to have access to their reports when decision time is upon them, not the next day, not the next week. And one of the key issues that we see here with timeliness is that the initial requests for reports often get compounded by follow-up questions that arise during review of those reports. So, a CEO maybe they hate spreadsheets and they just want to see a few simple graphs, but I've got a CFO who is used to seeing the data in spreadsheets, and so as I distribute one report or the other, I get these follow-up requests. Or maybe someone wants to see a different date range or a different slice of the data. And so the key here for us has been to build reports to be very flexible. In my personal role, I build reporting with things like filters and chart pickers and drill paths, and this is to enable users to go out and answer their own follow-up questions very easily. To conduct their own exploration, and this is a huge time saver for us. The third one's access. This is something that I think we all talk a lot about, and the truth is we're all kind of hypocrites. We like to hoard the data. We like to keep it close to the vest and only share when we're asked or when it benefits our career in some way. But in my career, I found that if we can be as transparent with the data as possible, the more that people have access to the data and to the insights, the better the overall quality of the decision making will be at your organization, and this is a win for everyone. So I think as much as possible we should seek to be enablers of the business by making data transparent. So how do we do all this? How do we apply these principles? How do we build the reporting model that makes the most sense for your organization? To sum up, it's using a centralized reporting model in that all of the data sets are owned and maintained by a single group. This establishes that single source of truth. But we counter that bottleneck effect by providing broad access to the data and also by making reporting extremely flexible, by, again, building it in a way that allows people to go out and search for their own insights. So an example of this, this is just an example of some reports that we use at my organization. The really cool thing about these is that even though you'll see that these are several different types of metrics, that you have cost per lead, our ROI broken out by some of the different advertising channels we use. You have sales accepted opportunities also broken out by advertising channel. Even though these are different metrics, each one of these reports is built on the same exact data set. So we're tapping into disparate sources to build a data set that allows us to show all of these different metrics and many others actually. And the other cool thing is I wish this were kind of more of a live demo so I could show it better, but any of these reports can easily be, we can change the date range or the slicer. We can slice it differently. You can change the way this is displayed. Maybe instead of a bar graph, it's more helpful, or the insights stand out more if I change it to a pie, or hundreds of different chart types. So for example, this cost per lead, if I'm interested in how much of my cost comes from Facebook, I can very quickly throw a filter on there and say, okay, of my total cost, here's how much comes from Facebook. Bottom line is that I think if we'll follow those three principles, it's going to be a huge time saver for us and make reporting at your organization and decision making at your organization much more efficient.
Thank you. The promise of the wealth of data that's available to us is finding really unique insights that truly substantively change the direction of marketing or of how business is done. Hank, have you seen any examples of that for your clients where the insights that you've helped them find have changed the marketing, whether it's the marketing mix, the creative, or business product development, product marketing?
Yeah, I think a huge thing for some of our customers has been the ability to change spend decisions on the fly. You know, I remember years ago or before we've had access to this kind of a platform, you got your report the next week and you found that your spend wasn't having the impact that you had hoped for. And so at that point, you're scrambling to change things and to adjust to that. We're watching these kind of things in real time. And so we're making, and our customers are as well. And so we're able to make those changes on the fly, right as we need to. And it's the savings in terms of resources and time is tremendous.
And David, have you seen anything through the social analytics that you've done that has really changed the direction of marketing or business for your client?
Yeah, well, I mean, I get to see it every day, which is fun. One of my favorite recent examples is we had this one consumer brand we were working with, and so much of their marketing was associated with the beach. And so we started doing analysis, and within visual search, one of the reports that actually comes up is top kinds of scenes that appear for a given search. It could be a product category, whatever it is you're looking for. And for their brand in particular, overwhelmingly, people were sharing images of it in a barbecue setting. And it actually led them to change their creative and then optimize creative around that. And I don't yet have the exact results of doing so, but it was compelling enough to make this brand where it's like they thought they knew one thing, the report showed them something else, they were willing to go and try to mix it up to be where consumers were instead of trying to totally change their perception of behavior.
Thank you. Maggie, attribution is the holy grail of marketing. As a media planner, I am always quick to say it's directional information. You still need the human part to make the intuitive decisions. But a lot of our clients struggle with it because they don't feel like they have enough data available on their business side. What is the minimum amount of data you feel you need in order to build a successful attribution model?
Sure. Not sure if it's on. Now it's on.
I don't know.
We don't actually need that much data. I'd say the first time that we build an attribution model, we want to have more history so we can really establish that baseline. So what would you have in the absence of that marketing activity? So the first time we want to go back at least 2 years to have that history, but then ongoing it can be updated on a daily, on a weekly basis, just based on the latest campaign information that's out there.
And just marketing data, business data?
Ideally, we'll have both. You know, one of the challenges, and maybe this is kind of what you're alluding to, is that digital data can come in very quickly, right? Mm-hmm. But the overall business data, there might be some lags on that. Mm-hmm. So we work with our clients to really try to provide that ongoing piece, but then that reconciliation every so often to ensure that the business and the kind of ongoing marketing are basically reconciled. And
last question before I turn it over to the audience. Adam, So there is such a massive amount of data available in web analytics that sometimes I find that we tend to skew towards that when a lot of our clients have offline sales as a greater percentage of their marketing mix. How do you make sure that you are mindful of the learning that comes from the web analytics data on the consumer path to purchase without overly skewing towards that?
That's a great question. It's a problem that gets faced frequently.
Other side.
What? Oh, got it. So there's definitely things you can do to tackle this problem. One of them comes from direct response marketing, where you can have your website have coupon codes that people can bring into the store, and that way you're able to attribute your offline revenue on to activity on your website. Other things, you can use web traffic as part of your your marketing mix model to show that your web traffic is having an impact on your in-store sales.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience before going to key takeaways?
David, the visual recognition that you're talking about is, it sounds like it's still images, it's plain images. What we're seeing a lot of ComScore is social video. And we've looked at about 20 different companies internationally that can recognize brands or logos in this moving image. And it's really disappointing, maybe 50, 70% accuracy. And in fact, in this case, humans are actually better than the machines. But have you thought about that yet, or you're still focused pretty much just on the static image? Because that obviously would work great with machine learning and AI stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to video, I'll give the short, more layman's version of it. And I'm admittedly wrapping my head around all this myself. But one of the big issues is overall processing power, right? And so if you have 30 frames per second, that's 30 times what you have to then process. It's like 30 still images in that second. So there's a lot of it. What I think is a really interesting area of this tech is the optimization of that search, where you say, okay, how can we determine, even in advance of seeing given video, which frames are going to provide the most useful information? Because I think we're well away from being able to process literally anything and everything out there. The other thing that's a little bit further along that doesn't tackle the problem at all in the depth we need to, but there are also some that are trying to tackle the audio associated with it. So it's basically the transcript monitoring, which goes back to text. Again, it's a series of imperfections, but it's just now like if you look at one app right now, download Pinterest's app and try to see how it's amazing how it finally is like crossing that chasm into consumer utility. So I think we're going to get there really quickly now, even if people thought it would come a lot sooner than it has.
Okay, let's go to key takeaways, starting with Adam, I hope.
So the first big takeaway is when you're asking questions of your analyst, make sure to ask questions about the who and the what. Also, for campaign planning, use web analytics to understand the actions necessary for a conversion and understand the attributes of the people who are most likely to convert. Another big one, this is really huge, is plan ahead. Know what you'd like to measure and make it a priority during the development cycle. And the last but not least, almost anything is possible to measure. It just depends on the resources and the dedication.
Maggie?
So key takeaways. So we talked about attribution is broken. Really, it only provides a partial view of what's driving towards that business outcome. However, marketing mix modeling is also very limited in the fact that it can't get to that granular customer understanding. So the idea really going forward is to aim for unified measurement, essentially bringing together both that holistic marketing mix with that tactical attribution for one version of the truth, providing a clearer picture, removing those biases, and really providing improved ROI.
Yeah, so I think some of this is really just appreciating that there is so much more out there, and I'm glad you mentioned video as well, because these are just some of the things that I think you need to start asking. We need to start defining what that gap is, and a lot of it goes back to the fundamentals, right? Like, you know, that 7 use case slides, and that's just a smaller version of the possibilities to fit on one slide. It's just, you know, what do you really want to get out of it? Then try to see what's possible. And I think the more that there's demand from the buyer side in this room, the more it's going to push so many others out there to go and just you know, make this happen quickly.
Yeah, I hopefully don't sound like a broken record here, but the key takeaways for me, again, are going to be make sure you have all of the relevant data. Invest some time there, because sometimes that can be tough. Sometimes we settle and we say, well, I've got enough, but really to tell that whole story and really get the insights that you're looking for, we've got to make sure we go out and do what we need to do to bring in all of the relevant data. And huge thing for me, yeah, make reporting as flexible as possible. Enable your users, of anyone that's viewing a report, to just be able to go and answer their own questions and discover things on their own, even if they're not very technical. And then access, right? Making data as transparent as possible. Share the information. It's been huge for us that as everyone taps into those resources and is able to start extracting insights, just as a collaborative group of people together in one company, the decision-making quality it's been astounding to see how that improves.
Thank you. We've heard a lot today about the importance of results and outcome-oriented reporting. So it's great to hear about some of the resources that are available to us to help provide that for our clients and to use that internally to make sure that we are being as effective as possible. I'm sure that you all are around if there are additional questions that we didn't have a chance to get to, and thank you so much.
Awesome.